Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today we are talking about the record Magic by Bruce Springsteen, which came out in 2007. So prior to hearing this album, I was used to two kinds of Bruce Springsteen sounds. The main one is that heartland rock sound that people will associate with Born to Run. Loud, but still kind of folksy. It's unique, bright, makes you want to get out of a seat sound, mixing so many instruments. On the other hand, there are a few Bruce Springsteen albums like Nebraska or The Ghost of Tom Joad that are really stripped down. And, while I like some classic folk music, like think of the early Bob Dylan albums or Phil Oakes, Springsteen's version of it doesn't really work for me because I guess he just has this naturally massive voice. And when you listen to him doing the truly stripped sound stuff, it sounds like he's holding himself back and he overcompensates for his usual loudness with a very dreary, stripped down sound. Anyway, what makes Magic great as a record is that it's a happy medium between those two extremes of Springsteen. The singing is a lot more articulate than the over mumbly folk stuff, but it also sounds very different from the classic heartland rock of Bruce Springsteen. And while I like that classic heartland rock, you can absolutely have too much of a good thing. So it's great to put on a record by an artist you're quite familiar with and hear a very different sound. So this album starts with perhaps its strongest track. It's called Radio Nowhere. And, as I've been getting at, the newness of the sound was a very pleasant surprise. Even though it's not experimental music, I nonetheless struggled to find the words to describe exactly what its sound is and why it works so well. On the one hand, it's cool and electric guitar based, so you can't really call it soft rock, but it's far easier on the ears than hard rock. It's electric guitars, but without that painful distortion that a lot of hard rock musicians put on their sound. So I don't think the term middle of the road rock exists, but that's really what it is. Cool and sort of upbeat, but not screaming at you in your face. Anyway, lyric-wise, this one also feels new. Bruce Springsteen songs are often about characters with adventurous spirits, but this feels a different kind of character. This is not some badass teen jumping on his motorcycle. Instead, it's a somber, lonely person wandering through the world, looking for anything, even like a drum beat to give him a sense that there's some kind of life out there. Even people speaking in tongues, which I guess could mean evangelical preachers, would be better than the absolute loneliness of his environment. Track number 2 is called You'll Be Coming Down. This one has a bit of a bright, jangly guitar sound musically, but the lyrics are a bit on the cynical side. And the contrast between the bright sound and the cynical lyrics, but cynical lyrics that manage to bring in a lot of colorful metaphors, it gives you this very unique texture. It just takes you to a different mood space, and that's kind of what art is about, experiencing reality in a way that reality doesn't allow you to experience it. Track number 3 is called Living in the Future. Just like track 2, this is an example of a song that sort of weaves together ominous lyrics with bright sounding music to create an interesting emotional texture. The sound in this one starts to sound a bit more like the classic E Street Band records, though still a tad more muted. Lyric-wise, it has kind of a life is a circle thing going on. All things good and bad will eventually pass, and then it throws in these cool images, futuristic cowboys placed alongside romantic breakups and bleak election results. It's a lot of ideas together that one could connect in our tangential minds, but don't necessarily come together. Again, it's art, it's not a direct message. Track number 4 is called Your Own Worst Enemy. I couldn't help but think of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol when I'm listening to this one, partly because there's a clear influence of Christmas music on the sound, and meanwhile it talks about a person struggling to sleep, burdened with some kind of guilt. Now, that's where the parallels will end. It's not a straightforward story like that one. Again, as we heard a bit on track 3, Bruce is sort of weaving between hinting at political themes and just hinting at personal romantic themes, and it's not really clear, unless maybe you asked him, what is this song about, exactly what he's getting at. So this ambiguity allows the songs to connect with different people in different moments. Track number 5 is called Gypsy Biker, and along with track 6, Girls in Their Summer Clothes, this one is a real vindictive edge to it. So, track number 5, Gypsy Biker, is a song about rebellion and heartbreak in a post industrial town. So, we're starting to really lean into those classic Heartland era Bruce Springsteen themes. But what makes it different from the early Bruce Springsteen songs is that rather than reveling in this rebelliousness, it's openly cynical. You can hear it in the tone of the song and in the blatant bleakness of the lyrics. There's, sort of no delusion of escaping down Thunder Road with this one. The singer knows the escape is futile. And it also has a more rustic feel because of the emphasis on acoustic guitar and harmonica. So even if the experience across America between the 70s and the 2000 aughts can in many ways broadly be similar, Bruce is nonetheless embodying a very different kind of character here. Track number 6, Girl in Their Summer Clothes, is sometimes heard as like the pop hit on this one, but if you look at the lyrics and listen to it in context, it's continuing that vindictiveness of track 5. And one would have to think Bruce is lifting the line here from the Rolling Stones' Painted Black. I see the girls walk by dressed in their summer clothes. And even though this one has a different musical feel, a different pace, it's very much channeling the angry use of that image in that other song. Track number 7 is called All Work for Your Love. Again, an interesting textural combination. It's a romantic song, but it also brings in some working class imagery and even some Catholic imagery. There's a lot of pop songs about how, I'll do anything, I'll put in the work to win over your love. But this one is more literal. It's literally saying that love is something that should be earned, and the singer is even admiring the romantic subject, not for beauty or some other kind of superficial attraction. He is literally attracted by the pain he can see on her caused by her life of hard work, and he wants to do similar hard work to be worthy of her. Track number 8 is Magic, and this somehow ends up being the title song. It's not bad, but it's the subtlest one on here. You could almost miss it in the context of the broader album if you're not sort of listening closely and trying to see what's distinct about each set of lyrics. This one definitely has a mystical feel to it because it brings in instruments like the mellotron and the thumbtack piano to create a kind of mystical feel. Yet it's mostly about not like some kind of wizard, but like a real life magician doing card tricks, pulling rabbits out of hats. And this character is almost surely metaphorical as well. So Bruce is laying different magical metaphors here. You have the sound of, true fantasy magic with lyrics describing real world magic, and it's probably combining to discuss something else, but in a very muted, subtle way. Despite being the title track, this is one of the ones that does the least to steal the show on here. Track number 9 is called Last to Die. And look, so Bruce Springsteen is an epic songwriter, and his music is fun to listen to. But when you take the time to listen and look at the lyrics song by song, it admittedly can kind of ruin the experience. Nonetheless, I'm doing that and making this video, and we'll probably make a few more. But yeah, it ruins the experience because you do start to see and feel the repetition in his lyrics. Now, I don't think the repetition is due to a lack of imagination. It's just that we have a world full of questions without any answers. As I said earlier in this video, you can sing a very similar protest song in the 70s that you would sing in the 20 aughts or now in the 2020s. So he keeps coming back to the questions of how can we live a good life in a world where the economic system forces so many people to the brink of poverty. And in the US, one of the only ways for getting out of that seems to be joining the army. The most notable lyric in The Last to Die actually comes towards the beginning of the song. That goes, "We took the highway till the road went black. We marked truth or consequences on our map." So the way the lyrics are written, truth or consequences is capitalized. So I looked into this. I thought, maybe is it the title of a book or something? Is it some poem he wants us to look into? But no, apparently there's literally a town in New Mexico called Truth or Consequences. So this is, a perfect illustration of where the poetry is great, but when you want the poetry to mean more, you hit a dead end. You literally hit this little town in New Mexico because, great poet as he is, Bruce doesn't have the answers to all our social ills, so all he's left to is leading us to a beautifully named little town in New Mexico. Track number 10 is called Long Walk Home. This one fuses different sadnesses together, as we've seen. So romantic sadness with anger at small businesses being shuttered as local economies is destroyed. And I actually just saw Bruce Springsteen perform this one in a concert. He could have picked many songs for this, but he named this one as the protest song. He was implicitly aiming at Donald Trump. Track number 11, The Devil's Arcade. Again, similar lyrical themes to a lot of what we've been talking about, watching people murdered by war. This one feels even more overwhelmed by sadness than some of the songs we've heard before. Obviously, the metaphor in the title, and there's this powerful, oomping stiffness to the sound of the music. And then this one ends with a song called Terry's Song, which rather than being a sweeping social critique is actually mourning the longtime friend and personal assistant of Bruce Springsteen, Terry McGovern. But the way it sort of snuck in at the end, the song isn't even written on the back of the album because apparently the album had been finished and then Bruce wrote Terry's Song and wanted to add it to the pressings. His feelings about this one individual kind of merge into the dramatic societal critique from Devil's Arcade and other previous songs. So overall, yes, as I was starting to say towards the end, a lot of familiarity here with classic albums like The River, Darkness at the Edge of Town, Born in the USA, Born to Run, etc., etc., etc. But the musical sound here is very different and thus a very important addition to the Springsteen catalog. And I suppose you could say because of the timing of when this one comes out, it was a response to the Iraq War era. Previously Springsteen would have been dealing with the fallout from the Vietnam War. So even if it's familiar themes, it's responding to a new social crisis. Let me know your thoughts on Magic and frankly any of the later, less celebrated Bruce Springsteen albums, because it's hard for something you put out later in a career to come to be seen as a classic. But this one is worthy. It's pretty darn good. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.